Brothers and sisters of Jamaica, I greet you with the fire of the ancestors burning in my chest and the red dust of Burkina Faso still on my boots. I come not as a head of state speaking to a foreign people, but as a son of Africa reaching out to his kin across the sea. I come as a revolutionary brother who recognizes in your struggles the reflections of our own. I come to honor your pain, salute your courage, and share in your enduring vision of freedom, from Ouagadougou to Kingston. From the Sahel winds to the tropical breeze of the Caribbean, we are bound by the same ancestral drumbeat. We are the children of ancient civilizations disrupted by conquest, torn by slavery, and tested by imperial deception. Yet we are also the descendants of those who never bowed, the Maroons who defied empire, the Burkinabe who rose with Sankara, the freedom fighters whose spirits still roam our hills, mountains, and deserts. Our story is not one of defeat, it is one of unbroken resistance. Jamaica, you are not small. You are mighty in memory, in rhythm, in soul. You are the flame that has kept burning in the night of oppression. You are the defiance of Queen Nanny, the vision of Marcus Garvey, the revolution of sound that came from Peter Tosh and Bob Marley. Your island is not isolated, it is a beacon, a fortress of the African spirit in the Atlantic. When I listen to Bob Marley, I do not hear entertainment, I hear sacred instruction. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. These words echo in every occupied corner of our continent. For while the chains of iron were broken long ago, the chains of the mind still hold many of us hostage. They come not with soldiers, but with debt. They come not with whips, but with NGOs. They do not enforce submission through colonial laws, but through economic blackmail, cultural domination, and the silencing of truth.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Now, Africa and Caribbean nations, they have very many things which are very common. These countries, they have plenty of resources. They have people who are mature in mind in terms of education and thinking. Now, this wisdom that they have been given, some of them, they don't use it. Because the problem that is facing Africa and Caribbean nations is almost the same thing. But these people, the leaders, most leaders, they don't want to answer or to face the truth. Now, Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso, is trying to make sense to African and Caribbean nations to stand and have a courage, unity, and self-determination, awareness, and security, every responsibility that is required for young people of these two continents. So, let's dive deeper in this video so that you may understand why Ibrahim Traore is trying to advise, is trying to make sense to our Caribbeans and African nations and leaders in general, more so dealing with youth. Now, stay to this channel. I'll be coming back with more reaction and commentary. The original credit goes to the original creator of these videos. Remember to like, subscribe, and share.
Hello everyone. I would like to welcome all the young people from the 13 regions who are in the room and those who have not been able to access the room. To all the young people from Africa, to accompany the youth, welcome to the land of integral men. I would like to pay a vibrant tribute to our strong security and defense forces who fight day and night for Burkina Faso to be and remain beautiful. I would like us to take a minute to pray for those who are on the ground and also for the rest of the souls of those who have fallen for our country. Thank you. Thank you. Let us give thanks to God for allowing us to be here today to celebrate the International Youth Day in good health.
Je le dis très souvent parce que
I say this very often because human beings often forget God when they have no problem,
lorsqu'il est dans le bonheur.
when they are in
Quand il y a les
happiness.
soucis, c'est là qu'on se rappelle de Dieu.
But when worries come,
Rendez grâce tous les jours pour le
this is
souffle
when
de
we
vie et
remember
pour la
God.
santé.
give thanks every day for the breath of life and for health. Youth from Burkina Faso, youth from Africa, youth, this phase of life where we have enough strength, enough energy, like the paraphrase, the slammer that has just passed. Youth is the time when we have spent enough time. We must take advantage of the time we have been given, use the energy necessary to reach our goals, to change the world, to change our world, to change the world of others positively. Children want to grow up to be young. Older people want to grow up to be young. Everyone wants to be young. Youth is a blessing. So take advantage of youth to do useful work. This is why when I see in the chosen theme, the first two words that come to mind, integration, security. Africa faces many challenges, and we must ask ourselves questions. Is youth an asset or a handicap for the development of nations? The answer is simple and unequivocal, and you know it. Developed countries mostly have an aging population, and currently many countries have launched programs to rejuvenate their populations. Africa has this chance to have a very young population. But why is Africa not developed? We must therefore look at the question of why Africa has a young population and why it is not developed, and why developed countries seek to rejuvenate their populations. We must transform our youth into a real asset and engine of development for our continent. To do this, we need integration. We need security and development. We need to unite. You will hear about the African Union. Yes, it exists, but what is the effect of the African Union? We cannot talk about integration and not talk about the African Union, because it is this organization that should unite us, create real integration. But we regret to see this war that persists on the African continent, that kills millions of young people, and that this organization, which has the head of state provided with an army, cannot organize itself to support certain countries. The Union is not just a word, the Union is a symbol. And we young people should learn from this situation to unite us to make integration a reality. I was unpleasantly surprised when Ethiopia, which is the seat of the African Union, experienced a conflict, and when the Prime Minister announced to close the university in Addis Ababa to face the threat, I did not see the action of the African Union to protect this seat. Western states, for the most part, saw Addis Ababa fall, fold their backpacks, and leave. Ethiopia fought, found an internal solution, and lives more or less in peace today. The children of Congo have been dying for years.
Plusieurs autres conflits, tels au Soudan.
Several other conflicts, such as in Sudan, exist on the continent.
Nous aurions aimé voir l'Union africaine générer
We would have liked to see the African Union generate the strength and all the strategies necessary to support its states so that they can find peace.
Nous ne viendrons même pas parler de nous ici au Sahel.
We will not even talk about us here in the Sahel.
Depuis près de 10 ans,
For nearly 10 years, the Sahel has been the scene of international terrorism.
mais nous ne voyons aucun soutien.
But we see no support from these organizations to find a solution to this problem.
Pire, il y a quelques jours de cela, un pays
Worse, a few
étranger
days ago, a foreign country in Africa openly announced that it had supported and participated
soutenu et participé à une attaque lâche
in a cowardly, terrorist, and barbaric attack against the forces of our confederation.
L'Union africaine n'a pipé aucun mot pour condamner.
The African Union did not say a word to condemn this interference. The African Union did not say a word to condemn this interference of a foreign state in Africa in the internal affairs of our states. I would like them to hear this shout and get out of their silence and take action so that the youth can believe in the African Union. We must unite. The only way to unite is to talk to each other, to understand each other, and to be able to establish the basis of this unity. Young people, let me tell you that to unite, there are 3 words, 3 big screws that we must ban from our behavior and our lives. I am talking about cowardice, treachery, and incompetence. We must ban these 3 words from our way of life. I am going to explain why. Cowardice covers many screws. A coward is always afraid. And when we are afraid, we become slaves. We bend. We lick our boots. Our ancestors were not cowardly. And if we are cowardly, our children will ask us questions. Imagine that in Burkina Faso we refuse to fight and we accept to submit, to live in slavery. Tomorrow our children will grow up and they will ask themselves questions. Have our parents been cowardly to leave us in slavery? Whether we are alive or dead, we will feel it. Cowardice is afraid, and the imperialists have understood that they are trying to scare the leaders so that they become cowards. Because when you are a coward, all the other screws can be born. We do everything so that we are afraid. They come to our palaces. They threaten us directly or with veiled threats. Of course, we respond as it is necessary. They try to make us understand. They take examples every time. They tell us, you know, Thomas Sankara tried to do this, but he is dead. President Haitian tried to do this, but he is dead. Gaddafi tried to do this, but he is dead. These are words that we take in a veiled way to scare us. And we often see some young people trying to take our path in a different way. We can hear them say, such and such person ruled like this, he is in his country. Such and such person ruled like this, he is in prison. All this to try to scare us so that we become cowards. But I think they didn't understand one thing. When we say country or death, we win. It's not just a sentence. It's not just a sentence. It all makes sense. We are not afraid and we will never be afraid.
Ils ont fait peur sûrement à beaucoup de chefs d'État africains.
They probably scared a lot of African heads of state. They probably scared a lot of African heads of state.
Lorsqu'on a l'occasion d'être dans certaines situations à l'extérieur,
You see, often when we express ourselves or when we have the opportunity to be in certain situations abroad,
prendre soin de notre jeunesse pour pouvoir amorcer notre
we often say something to call on African heads of state to wake up and take care of our youth so that we can start our real development. So that we can start our real development.
Publiquement à nos propos,
We are often misunderstood. Some have publicly opposed us. Some have publicly opposed us because they feel indexed. But I can assure you, youth, that when we find ourselves in the corridors,
ces mêmes chefs d'État nous disent vous êtes sur la bonne voie, c'est ce qu'il faut faire pour que l'Afrique.
these same heads of state tell us that we are on the right track and that this is what needs to be done so that Africa can rise again.
Nous leur posons des questions à savoir pourquoi vous ne
So we ask them questions like, why don't you do like us? Why don't you support us?
Certains nous disent qu'ils ne peuvent pas. Chers aînés,
Some tell us that they have the means, and some tell us that they can't.
Je souhaiterais dire que les peuples africains sont les peuples les plus pacifiques.
Dear elders, African heads of state, at the end of this podium, I would like to say that African peoples are the most peaceful, that African peoples are the most peaceful. When you recognize a wrong, you have to tell the people. When you recognize a wrong, you have to tell the people. We are not afraid to come out and tell the people we are sorry, we have been compromised, we have been mistreated, we have been compromised by several things, and we ask for forgiveness, and we come back on the right path, and to start working really for the independence of our states and our emancipation. And I think it is possible. If we remain in this posture of fear, we will be cowardly and history will judge us. Our children will ask questions. Our grandchildren will ask questions. We are writing history. There is no place for cowardice. If our ancestors had been cowardly, we would not be here. Do you remember? I will give you an example of the people of Bamileke and Bassa. I want to talk about the Cameroonians, the union of the population of Cameroon, which since the 1950s has started a relentless fight against the Poles, but they have been massacred. The French colonial armies, in turn, have dispatched infantry battalions, tanks, helicopters, have annihilated anti-village. The most inhuman tortures have taken place during this period. You can do research on what they call the cart or the Bakasima. Hundreds of thousands of people have been decimated in Africa because they dared to ask their settlers to leave their land. A civil war that lasted several years. That is to say that people dared to face the imperialists with their bare hands so that we could be here. There is no reason why we cannot face the imperialists so that our future generations can live. There are many examples throughout Africa of brave men who refused to be cowardly, who fought, who faced. Well, let us be worthy of these people. We are their descendants, and let us be worthy of them. A coward cannot be worthy. Let us not be cowards, young Africans, because a coward is always a traitor. And it goes hand in hand. They will try to frighten us so that we become cowards. And if we are cowards, we will betray. We must ban the treachery of our habits. Africans have been traitors so that the slave trade succeeds in Africa. It is because Africans have been traitors that colonization has been able to sustain in Africa. Let us question history. We will see. Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, was betrayed because he dared to hold his head. And these same beautiful televisions came to the Congo for a few bids extended to individuals in the Congo for an interview to please their population. And you were able to follow that. Lumumba bothered us. He is dead. We are happy. It is treachery. Many other heroes have fallen so that we are here today. And it is a technique of imperialism to frighten others by taking action to really create terror. It has not started today. I will give you the example of a warrior who fought, Victor Biakaboda.
Lisez, vous comprendrez. Il est issu d'une famille de chefs, pas de la chefferie.
Read it and you will understand.
Il est un enfant.
He came from a family of chiefs.
Il a fait ses études au Sénégal, je crois.
No chiefdom given by the colonizer. He was a worthy child. He studied in Senegal, I believe. He became a doctor in Guinea. And when the RDA was created, he went to the Ivory Coast region to fight against imperialists, against invaders, against the colonizer. He tried to organize the Ivorian society. Everywhere, people began to speak up. There was a general in his time, Pichu, who massacred the Ivorian population so that this spirit of freedom could never germinate. He continued his fight alongside FAORCEC Lix Houphouët-Boigny. They fought, but the most violent was Victor Biakaboda. He represented a threat to the imperialists. What did he do? In addition to massacring the people who demonstrated, one night they killed him in an atrocious way next to Bois-Flancy. A few hours later, when the people of Dimbakro heard the murder, they marched, they demonstrated. They were massacred by the colonial army. History was killed. The facts are there. After his death, which scared FOC Lix Houphouët-Boigny, they called him and told him, if you continue the fight, you will meet the same fate. He was afraid and he joined imperialism. He was appointed minister in France and later he came to take the reins of the Ivorian Accord. They used him to eliminate many other people who dared to raise their voices. I think Thomas Sankara is a good example. If you are afraid, you will be cowardly and you will be a traitor. Never be afraid. The fight must continue. There are many other examples around the world. And there is this phenomenon that they have also used for a long time and that they continue to use. You see, some individuals, for example, have found themselves in other countries and created a so-called parallel government to the Malian government. You have heard this story. It is a technique that has existed for a long time. I will give you the example of Ahmed Chalabi, Iraq. This math teacher, who was even in the Iraqi government, was recaptured by the imperialists, and he formed this semblance of parallel government in Iraq, in the United States. And he was used to be the sheep of sacrifice, because it was to him that it was said that Saddam Hussein was developing weapons of mass destruction, and he did it. They used him, and this Talibi was used to kill millions of children in Iraq and destroy Iraq. And do you know what was the fate of Chalabi? One evening after an interview, he said that he knew that the CIA was on his back. A few hours later, he was found dead in his bed, dead of a heart attack. If you betray, you will have macabre endings. That's how it is. Imperialism has no friends. Imperialism uses you. and when it finishes using you, it does what it wants with you. Follow my gaze. You understand what I'm talking about. It has always been like this. The third vice that I invite you to leave is incompetence. I'm coming back to the word of the Islamist who walked on my tongue. Incompetence. You understand what I'm talking about. Incompetence is a very dangerous phenomenon that they use to destroy African society. In our administrations, there is a lot of incompetence. Let's recognize it. Incompetence have a lot of space next to imperialism. Because incompetence can take over the development of a country. Incompetence can lead you to doubt yourself. Incompetents love ease. Incompetents love everything for themselves. Incompetents don't like those who are competent. They don't like those who innovate, those who seek. Incompetents are dangerous. When you are enlightened, incompetents don't like you. When you want to innovate, incompetents don't like you. Incompetents only recognize those who are competent, and they will fight him until his last breath. Because he is afraid of those who are competent. Seek knowledge. Seek knowledge and work. Work hard to be competent. Ban incompetence. Because through distractions that we want to make us adopt, we become incompetent. I'll give you an example. Social networks are the places where information is published today. People are informed through the internet. A young man who publishes an article on his farm, or an agricultural project or a scientific project may not have 1,000 views. But a young man who publishes on futility has millions of views. As the young slammer said, we want to waste your time on futility. Be aware. Let's focus on work and seek knowledge. Let's seek competence. It's good to be distracted, but we must work first before being distracted. Seek knowledge, otherwise you'll waste your time doing nothing.
Cherchez la connaissance, sinon vous perdrez du temps à ne rien faire.
Youth is the time when you must use your time wisely.
Il faut exploiter son temps à bon escient. Les impérialistes le savent.
The imperialists know this.
Ils vont multiplier tout ce qui est événement de distraction. Ils vont multiplier tout ce qui est.
That's why they multiply all events of distraction.
Pour que vous soyez des incompétents.
They multiply all events that can distract you from work so that you become incompetent. When you fall asleep, you choose the incompetent to lead the important structures. You have no choice but to fold. Let's not be incompetent. Let's seek knowledge.
Les incompétents se cachent souvent derrière des mots.
Incompetents often hide behind words. They use the terms democracy and freedom without realizing what they mean. Democracy is a state of mind as much as youth is a state of mind. Whether you're a Democrat or not, how can you impose democracy by killing millions of people? It's a dictatorship, not democracy. You can't impose it. Those who call themselves Democrats have seen scenes where people were prevented from joining assemblies. We've seen scenes where forces landed in assemblies to force deputies to take texts. We've seen more terrible scenes where people kill their demonstrators, but they call themselves Democrats and we're called Perseus. If that's democracy, I repeat, we don't want this democracy. And when you see incompetence, they don't seek to know what the real meaning of the word democracy is. They cling to the definition given to them by imperialism and start talking about democracy without really knowing the basics. That's incompetence. You have to know, look at the world to redefine democracy as we want it in Africa. Incompetence hides behind freedom. Remember, there is no individual freedom. It's a fact. Do you really think everyone is free? Freedom is collective. As long as we live in a society with rules, freedom is collective. Because if you don't respect the rules, you can't live in society. If you're free to speak as you please, the other is free to answer as he pleases. That would be disorder. If you're free to walk the streets and pass traffic lights as you please, the other is free to pass by and hit you. You understand that if individual freedom takes over, we are in a society of disorder. That's why there are rules in society. And everyone has to respect the rules. That's why we're talking about collective freedom. Some people have the right to speak about their individual freedom, but they don't care about others. I think that's also part of incompetence. Because they don't try to understand. They make up the rights given by the states to serve and do everything for themselves, neglecting the freedom of others. No, freedom is collective. Before we act, we think about the freedom of others, and we shouldn't transcend the freedom of others. So we need to have a reserve. And once we have a reserve, individual freedom doesn't exist. Freedom is collective, and we need to have this culture of collective freedom. So let's seek knowledge, let's read, let's interrogate history. Don't read the history they wrote in their favor. Seek knowledge through several sources, and you will understand in history who fought for Africa, how we must fight to continue this struggle of our ancestors. And I won't finish my words without making a statement about communication. Because, as I said, it's the fatal weapon of imperialism. And you young people, you must do everything to distinguish the true from the false. We will continue to dismantle the lies of imperialist media that always try to create problems in Africa. Because these media, through their mouths, can make you a king tomorrow. Through their mouths, they can make you leave your position as king and make you a poor slave tomorrow. Pay attention. I was following a program, unfortunately not long ago, in Burkina Faso, where a young journalist released a sentence that left me a little perplexed. He was talking about North Korea, and the journalist said, "But he is starving in North Korea." Has he taken care of going to North Korea to investigate to see if he is really starving? Since imperialist media have sold North Korea is more developed than many European countries. And because these media tell us that North Korea is a dictatorship, people are starving, They are poor, they have nothing, we take it here. But North Korea is a nuclear power. How did they do it? Let's pay attention to communication. We must not blindly follow these lying media that only try to divide Africa. It is logical. They fight for the interests of their people, and the interest of their people is that Africa is divided. So, young people of Burkina Faso, young people of Africa, we must unite. We must ban cowardice. We must ban incompetence. We must ban treachery and all the risks in our society. We have the opportunity to speak. We thank God for these opportunities that we have each time to speak, to raise awareness. And I invite you to spread the word, to get to work so that the Africa that we want, self-sufficient in terms of food, is a reality. So that the Africa that we want for harmonious development is a reality. Let me finish because I return to your theme. There is no peace and security without development. The two go hand in hand. If there is no development, there is no security. Because if there is no development, the youth will inevitably find themselves in the vice and there will be no security. If there is no security, there is no development. So the two must go hand in hand. Let's integrate this in our fights so that we can fight and develop. Let's go towards production. Let's produce enough. Let's transform our raw materials so that they are beneficial for our populations and in terms of exportation. I wish you a very good day of reflection on the chosen theme and also on the essential role of youth in this fight. Good luck to all. May God make sure that all those who have made the trip return home in good health and that we can meet again when we wish it by the grace of God. La patrie ou la mort. Thank you.
Wow. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the channel, and thank you for staying tuned. Now, Traore is talking about the power of youth. One of the strongest themes in his message is that enormous power of you young people is very important for a nation. He describes the youth as the true engine of development because they possess the energy, creativity, ambition, and determination necessary to transform society. For Traore, young people cannot afford to remain passive observers of their country's problems. They must become participants in solving them. This means taking responsibility for education, economic development, innovation, leadership, and national progress. Instead of waiting for someone else to change their circumstances, young people are encouraged to recognize that the future is largely in their own hands. His message is particularly significant for Africa and the Caribbean, regions with large youthful population and enormous natural and human resources. Another key point he talks about is about the three vices, whereby he identifies the three major obstacles that young people must reject: cowardice, treachery, and incompetence. Cowardice prevents people from confronting difficult challenges. Treachery destroys trust and unity, and incompetence prevents good intervention from becoming effective actions. The message is therefore about more than simply having patriotic feelings. Traore emphasizes the importance of courage, loyalty, discipline, and competence. The young people who want to see their nations develop, these qualities must become part of their everyday lives. Unity, integration, and security, which is another major part of the message, focuses on African integration and security. Traore questions whether regions and continental institutions are doing enough to protect African nations during periods of conflict and instability. His argument is that development cannot exist in isolation from security. A country cannot easily build strong schools, hospitals, industries, businesses, and infrastructures when its people are living under constant insecurity. This leads to a broader argument. African countries need stronger cooperation, not only economically, but also politically and in matters of security. For Traore, unity should not remain an inspiring slogan. It must become practical cooperation between nations, African and the Caribbean. The message also creates an important connection between Africa and the Caribbean, particularly Jamaica. Although separated by geography, African and Caribbean society share deep historical and cultural connections. The discussion argues that this connection could be strengthened through trade, education, cultural exchange, investment, technology, and political cooperation. The question becomes, what could happen if African and Caribbean nations worked more closely together instead of depending primarily on relationships with powerful external countries? The potential is significant. Jamaica and other Caribbean nations possesses unique strengths, while African nations possesses enormous resources, markets, and a rapidly growing population. Stronger direct relationship could create opportunities for both regions. The importance of history was another powerful part of Traore's message concerning history and information. He encourages young people to study history for themselves and to question narratives that are presented as unquestionable facts. The argument is that controlling information can influence how people understand themselves, their neighbors, and their past. So, if young people do not understand their history, they may become vulnerable to divisions created by others. Traore therefore calls for greater intellectual independence. Young people should research, compare sources, study African and Caribbean history, and develop the ability to think critically. Understanding history is presented not simply as an academic exercise, but as a tool for understanding the present and shaping the future. Depth and foreign influence. The commentary expands on these ideas by discussing the impact of depth and foreign influence on developing nations. The central concern is whether countries can achieve genuine independence when their economies remain heavily dependent on external financing, foreign institutions, or outside political interests. The discussion does not suggest that international cooperation is inherently negative. Rather, it raises the question of whether cooperation can exist without creating long-term dependence. This is where economic independence becomes important. Countries need the capacity to produce, trade, innovate, invest, and create opportunities for their own citizens. A message of responsibility. Ultimately, Traore's message places responsibility on the young generation. He challenges young African and Caribbean people to reject fear, division, betrayal, and incompetence while embracing courage, unity, knowledge, discipline, and competence. The message is also a call to strengthen relationships between Africa and the Caribbean, and to recognize that shared history can become the foundation for future cooperation. For the youth, the challenge is clear. Do not simply complain about the problems inherited from previous generations. Learn from history, understand the present, develop the skills necessary for the future, and become active participants in building stronger societies. Ibrahim Traore's message ultimately presents a vision of a generation that refuses to remain divided, dependent, or silent. Whether one agrees with every political position expressed in the speech or not, The underlying questions are important. Can African and Caribbean nations become more economically independent? Can their young people transform their society? Can historical and cultural connection between Africa and the Caribbean become stronger? The future will depend not only on presidents and governments, but also on the millions of young people willing to take responsibility for what comes next. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: a nation's greatest resource is not only what lies beneath its soil, it is also the people who have the courage, knowledge, and determination to build its future. Now, I believe that is the whole message that Ibrahim Traore tried to put, and it has a lot of sense inside it. I believe you have enjoyed the message, you have enjoyed the videos, and let's embrace what you see. It is important. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends and family. Thank you for your time, and be blessed.